Alright, this is Unit 3 Polynomials, Day 8, and here we're going to be applying everything we've learned so far in the second half of the Polynomials unit. So it's asking us to determine the solution to the following equations. So we're going to use the zero product property, which we've used already when we did quadratics. Now we're just applying it to polynomials. So you might need to do this on a separate sheet of paper just so you can show your work. So I'm going to cover up number 2 and do my work on this little paper here. To find the solutions, you're just taking the things that are inside the parentheses and making them equal to 0. So the first one's nice and easy. X plus 2 equals 0. If I subtract 2 on both sides, one of my solutions to this equation is x equals -2. Which means if I plug in -2, I'm going to get out 0, because -2 plus 2 is 0, and anything times 0 is 0. For the other part, 11n squared minus 9n plus 12 equals 0. Well, this one goes back to our quadratic unit. And here it's a quadratic formula that I can use to solve this question. Because here I have an equation that's quadratic. So remember, this is my formula is opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I can get my solutions, and this one's multiple choice, so it's nice. So in this problem, my a is 11, my b is 9, and my -9, and my c is 12. So plugging those values in, I get the opposite of -9 plus or minus the square root of -9 squared minus 4 times 11 times 12 all over 2 times 11. Opposite of 9 is positive 9, so I can bring that up here. Positive 9, plus or minus. For this part, I'm just going to put what's underneath the square root onto my calculator and see the value that it gives me. So -9 squared minus 4 times 11 times 12. So I get -447 over 22. And then remember, when you have a negative under a square root, it's an imaginary number, so I write 9 plus or minus I root 447 over 22. So in this case, it looks like my answer is going to be letter B. Because remember, this is two solutions, 9 plus I root 447 over 22, and 9 minus I root 447 over 22. When you have a multiple choice, one method you could use when you're solving your problem is take a look at your b value. This said I had to do the opposite of b, which makes it +9, right? Well, looking at the multiple choice options, the only one that gets me to +9 is b. So that might have been one way I could have eliminated answers while I was doing my work to check. So when you have your factors or your equations already factored, you just set each part equal to 0 and then solve for the three different answers. Here I know there's 3 answers because the exponent here is 1 and the exponent here is 2, so this is going to give me 3 different answers. This is a cubic. Try number 2 on your own. Let's look at number 3, because here you have to do a little bit of factoring and then you can solve your problem. So remember, when you're factoring, you first try to identify, is there a number you can divide all of these by? And currently there is no number or letter that they have in common. So that's where I'm going to do the grouping, and I drew that dotted line to separate it out into 2 groups. In the first group, the common term is x squared. So multiplying by x squared by x would get me x to the 3rd, and then by 2 would get me 2x squared. So here I need to get the same thing in the parentheses on the other side. So I'm going to pull out -2 from these 2 terms. So this would give me x, because -2 times x is -2x, and +2, because -2 times +2 is 4. -4, excuse me. Again, these are terms now. I've got 2 separate terms, and the common factor there is x plus 2 and x squared minus 2. Remember, you can always check, go backwards and see if you get the answer at the beginning. X times x squared is x to the 3rd. X times -2x is -2x. 2 times x squared is positive 2x squared, and 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So you can always go back and check. What you need to do now is you need to solve these solutions by making them equal to 0. So the first one is just x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 on both sides, and you get x equals negative 2. For the second one, you get x squared minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 on both sides, and you get x squared equals 2. Take the square root of both sides. Absolute value of x is the square root of 2, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 2. So those are my solutions to those equations. Try the other examples on your own. Just be cautious, because in some of your answers you might have imaginary numbers, so you might have to deal with an I. Good luck and try those practice problems.